Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called I'm the Male Lead's Girlfriend. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! A young man with a cold expression breaks his engagement with a beautiful young lady, promising to address her appropriately afterward. She feels a wave of relief as he breaks off their engagement, knowing it would have brought her nothing but misery. It is the truth she knows too well from reading the entire book. The night before becoming the lead in the story she was reading, Louise sat in her room, fantasizing about a wealthy life. Envious of the lead's popularity and power, she wished she could live that life forever. Reading the story made her dream of becoming the lead of the exciting story and wishing she wouldn't wake up from that dream. The next morning, when she wakes up, an old lady hugs her worriedly, knowing she had a fever. She assures the lady that she is feeling better, while she wonders if she's still dreaming. She grows anxious, especially when the lady calls her Louise, the story's villain. Louise is shocked when she realizes she is now the character she disliked. She can't believe how unlucky she is. While looking at her, the lady with her is confused if she is really sick, seeing her still whimpering. Fortunately, Louise comes from a wealthy family. She is also pretty even as a 5-year-old and her family loves her. However, she can't do anything about it and just decides not to follow the storyline. She resolves to be kind and sincere, hoping for a happy life. Years pass, and Louise grows into a fine young lady at Sanctica Academy. As she reaches the beginning of the story, she vows not to fall in love with the prince. In the novel, the crown prince is engaged to her but later dumps her. She bullies the female lead and faces self-destruction. She is determined not to waste his life. She thinks it's easy to watch Ian and Stella fall in love. However, she stops when someone taps her from behind. It's Ian Odmoniel Kron, her fiancé. Ian pinches her cheeks, calling her his precious fiancé and expressing happiness that she's attending the academy. She is shocked by his words, knowing he doesn't mean them. He also recalls her motion sickness from childhood when she vomited on his pants in the carriage. He tells her she can leave after the ceremony if she's not feeling well. They bid each other goodbye, and she resolves to avoid and distance herself from him. At the ceremony, Louise looks for her favorite character, Stella Lapis. Instead of Stella being awarded top student, Louise is called up to the stage. Rather than feeling bad about taking Stella's place, she assures herself this is her chance for a normal life instead of becoming a villain. It's like she's rewriting her own story, steering away from the path of becoming the villain she feared. After the ceremony, Louise visits the Academy's library. Normally, everyone socializes, but Stella heads straight to reading books. Louise is mesmerized by Stella's beauty and remembers that the library is where Ian and Stella are supposed to fall in love. Louise is shocked when Ian appears behind her. He's been calling her name, but she didn't respond. He picks up a book to tease her and comments on her interest in intriguing titles. When he's about to read it, she snatches it from him. Ian asks if she's going to borrow the book, and she nods. He offers to help her make a library card, which she declines. Ian then notices Stella and asks if she's a freshman. Louise expects a magical moment, but Ian scolds Stella for carrying 3 books at once. After that scene, Louise can't believe Ian is being mean to Stella. She becomes anxious, fearing she might return to her real world if the story continues this way. She thinks of a way to make Ian and Stella fall in love, but decides she needs a nap first. When she falls asleep, she dreams she's in a grave in a dark forest, remembering it as the Empress's funeral and the first time she met Ian. He looks sad, and she wondered what she was doing there. Her dream shifts to the palace's conservatory, where her mother tells them their engagement was arranged before she was born. She wakes up, unable to believe it, and needs to take action for Ian and Stella. Louise rushes to Ian's dormitory to break off their engagement. She asks him to talk privately, and they head to the rooftop. Mesmerized by the sunset, she rushes to the rail, and Ian drags her back, advising her to be careful. She asks Ian to stop mentioning their engagement to avoid misunderstandings. He thinks that it may be someone whom she doesn't want to misunderstand. However, she doesn't want to tell him that she just doesn't want to create a misunderstanding. Even though he's not satisfied with her reason, he agrees. He promises that he'll forget their engagement and to address her appropriately afterward. She instantly feels grateful, but then he adds that he'll only do it for a year. Louise finds it ridiculous, but thinks it's enough time for Stella and Ian to fall in love. He adds that if neither of them is in a romantic relationship by that time, their engagement will be official. After the intense scene on the rooftop, Louise returns to her room, determined to avoid Ian. However, she is surprised when a beautiful young lady is in her room and calls her by name. The girl asks if Louise is a freshman with a top grade. She wants to invite her to join the student council. It was their tradition for the top grade students to join the council. However, before she can decline, the girl tells her that she can get upon joining and leaves after that. Later on, during the night, she can't help thinking about Ian's proposition. However, she is still positive and considers joining the council. In that way, Ian won't be able to interfere with her personal life. She will just enjoy watching Ian and Stella's romance blooming. Something tells me you won't get your wish, Louise. Morning comes, and Louise decides to go to the council's office. Unfortunately, Ian was there. Startled, she slams the door, only to open it again to check if it's really him. She decided to face him and addresses him with his title. However, he doesn't want to be called like that. He walks closer to her. He asked why she slammed the door. She reasoned out that she was just shocked to see him. Turns out, he's the council's president. Sorry, Louise. Fate works in mysterious ways. As she faces Ian in the council office, she can't help but notice the change in him. The ambitious drive that led him to become the council president was something she hadn't expected. The young girl that convinced her to join the council welcomes her with a big smile. She then instructed Louise about their duties in the council. After that, she entered Mr. Hewitt's history class with Ian. Their casual conversation about the class being boring inadvertently reached the ears of the teacher, leading to her dismissal. It's a setback, but Louise decides to take it as a lesson and prepare better for Mr. Hewitt's class. At the library, when she successfully evades Ian, she sees Stella. She remembers that in the original story, Stella falls off the ladder and Ian appears at that moment. However, when it is about to happen, she ends up catching Stella instead. For once, Louise feels like she is taking control of the situation instead of letting fate dictate her actions. Now you're being a passive character in someone else's narrative, Louise. Louise feels pain after catching Stella as she falls from a ladder. Ian arrives late, receiving a scolding from Louise, though he apologizes. He insists on taking her to the infirmary, but she stubbornly stands on her own despite the pain. Ian, unable to watch her suffer, insists on carrying her. When Stella intercepts them, Ian's response is surprisingly cold, telling her to let go, leaving Louise stunned. Isn't Stella supposed to be his one true love? Things are certainly shifting. Walking to the infirmary, Louise worries about the potential gossip, but Ian reassures her. It's strange, but Ian insists, perhaps hinting at his feelings for Louise. In the infirmary with the nurse on dinner break, Ian tends to Louise's injury. Louise teases him for being a worrywart, but she appreciates his care, feeling a level of comfort she hasn't felt before. While sleeping, Louise dreams of Simon Hillard and Ian. She gives Simon a flower, a secret between them. The next morning, Louise and Stella meet at the library. Louise reassures Stella about her injury, but maintains a formal tone, despite Stella's insistence on informality. Reflecting on past events, Louise feels horrible about her previous actions towards Stella, but is relieved she didn't repeat them this time. She remembers needing a book from the library for Mr. Hewitt's class, but Stella tells her it's already borrowed. Disappointed, Louise asks Stella to reserve it once it's returned. A young man appears, resembling the person from her dream. It is Simon Hillard, Ian's cousin and the only son of Grand Duke Hillard, whose existence is a potential source of conflict. Simon always has to surpass himself to avoid surpassing Ian. This family is serving looks. How can they all be so stunningly handsome? Louise notices that Simon has grown taller. He mentions the book she's looking for and immediately offers to give it to her once he's finished. With that, Stella wants to check the book's due date, but Simon insists Louise wait for him. He returns with the book, but teasingly raises his hand and demands she calls him Hillard instead of my lord. Upon realizing Louise has recently been injured, Simon stops teasing. Louise is surprised he knows about her accident, suspecting Ian has spread the news. She's even more shocked when Simon reveals he knows about her engagement to Ian and understands Ian's concern because she is his fiancé. She then mentions that she and Ian plan to break off the engagement in a year. Instead of discussing it further, Simon asks if she can spare some time for him, to which she agrees. As they walk down the academy hallway, Louise asks where they're going. Instead of answering directly, Simon says that they're heading to a nice restaurant that she likes. Which is true, they are in the conservatory that she loves the most. He also says that she likes to have black tea in a conservatory. Then he tells her to wait for him as he prepares something for her. While waiting for Simon, Louise is shocked when a man in glasses enters the conservatory. He drops the book he's holding, causing pain. As she tries to help him, her attention is diverted to the book. It is by her favorite author, one she has read in her father's library. So she introduces herself. He already knows her since she's the top student and all. He introduces himself as Professor Wayne Hill. Louise is delighted to meet a man who has become a professor at the age of 23. After a while, Simon returns to the conservatory with their tea. Louise is still thrilled about meeting her favorite professor, and Simon is glad for her. She recalls the time she gave Simon a lily and how he made it into a bookmark. Simon remembers it too, recalling how much he held back his feelings over that single flower, knowing she belonged to someone he must not outshine. When he received the lily, he truly treasured it. Aw, his unspoken feelings are really evident. Ever since she started having tea with Simon, Louise's life became more interesting. She gladly accepts the task of decorating flowers for the freshman party. With Simon around, she no longer worries about bumping into Ian. Her day is going well until Ian suddenly appears. Shortly after, the flowers for the banquet arrives. Knowing her family's reputation for caring for the Empire's flowers, Ian depends on her for the task. After the decorations are done, Louise feels proud. Then she notices Professor Rosson entering the hall and admiring the decorations. The professor asks if she is the top student, but Louise is taken aback when the professor admits she wasn't familiar with her. Feeling uncomfortable, Professor Rosson remarks that anyone could attend the banquet if they knew how to behave. Louise is about to defend herself, but Simon stops her. Feeling uneasy, she excuses herself and leaves the hall. She finally understands why her parents are excited for her debut in noble society. Later on, she is forced by other student council members to join the party since they all prepared it. They also mention that the president is furious about what happened earlier, which she doesn't believe. She knows she is angry because the professor's attitude reminds her of a bad memory. She refuses their invitation, forcing them to leave her room. She assures him that they shouldn't worry about her as she also has a plan later on. What plan is that? When they leave her room, she opens her window as she is planning to read a book. However, she sees Stella and gives her the dress that she's supposed to wear to the party. In the story, Stella doesn't have anything to wear. Stella is thankful for her and bids her goodbye. Meanwhile, she thinks that Stella can spend her time with Ian without her around. The night has finally come. She hears the noise from the party and imagines that everyone is having a good time, especially Ian and Stella. She also thinks about Professor Rosson's behavior towards her. When she finds it noisy to read the book, she looks for a peaceful place, but is shocked when she sees Stella. What's more shocking, she isn't wearing the dress she gave to Stella. After seeing Stella rush to the party, Louise remains in the conservatory, lost in her book. However, she can't shake the worry about Stella's safety, even pondering over Stella's dress, which she assumed was as per the original plot and probably prettier than hers. Suddenly, Ian appears, knowing he could find her in the conservatory and concerned about what happened earlier. She assures him she has forgiven the professor. He then extends his arm, inviting her to dance. Louise accepts, and they begin to dance under the moonlight without music. She asks how he found her, and he reveals that he asked Simon. As they dance, they tease each other and reminisce about their childhood memories. When the dance ends, Louise feels her heart racing. She reminds herself to stay composed and keep her guard up. She asks if Ian is returning to the party, as some students want her flower arrangements. He mentions that Professor Rosson had allowed it. Ian adds that he will be busy tomorrow teaching the students how to care for the flowers. Louise insists on visiting the students herself if he provides her with the list of those who bid for her flowers. He mentions it might be a way for her to be recognized by others. She thanks him for doing it, to which he answers that it's the least he could do for his childhood friend. The morning comes, and she starts to visit the students who bid for the flowers. She is shocked when she learns that Ian's name is there. She knocks on his door, and when there's no answer, she opens it and enters. She notices the flowers well arranged in the vase and wonders why he put his name on the list of students who need help when he learned it from his father. She is shocked when Ian pulls her towards the bed. He is undressing, looking quite ripped. When she tries to leave him, he says he doesn't want her to let go. I'm lost for words. He is so hot. Louise is shocked by Ian's behavior. She is supposed to push him away, but something stops her. To lighten the atmosphere, she asks why he put his name on the list. He answers that it's the only way to speak to her and hugs her from behind. After that, he puts his clothes on but calls her, making her look at him half naked. She overreacts to what she sees while he teases her. When he puts all his clothes on, he commands that they get back to work. Shortly after, she heads to one of the council members who needs her help on how to take care of the flowers. There, she learns that Stella and Ian had a moment at the freshman party last night. They dance together, and it's the talk of the academy until now. It's concluded that Ian confessed his love for her. After hearing it, she breaks the vase, causing her finger to bleed. Oops, I think someone is jealous. She excuses herself and walks out of the room. However, she is sad as she did not witness the important plot of the novel. But still, there is a place in her heart that aches, but she won't let her guard down. she will still continue what she planned for Ian and Stella. While walking in the hallway, she sees Stella and Ian talking, so she hides. She catches some parts of the conversation, but he sees her and tells her to come closer. She approaches them and is asked what her purpose is. She answers that she wants to ask if he wants strawberries. However, Stella seems not to know strawberries, which Louise explains to her. She also adds that she'll give Stella strawberries. In the back of her mind, she is planning something for Ian and Stella to get closer to each other. After that, Louise leaves them to have a conversation with each other. She wants to make sure that this time she will make up for Louise's past mistake. As soon as Louise leaves, Ian and Stella begin talking about her. He tells her that it's easy to take advantage of Louise because she's kind. He also mentions that everyone in the council works at his command. Stella then proceeds to her motive for talking to Ian. She's afraid of the rumors that spread last night while they were dancing. However, he seems not bothered about it at all and leaves her. A few days later, Louise, Professor Wayne, and Simon help the gardener harvest the strawberries before the rain pours. While they're harvesting, Simon seems a bit off, thinking that his shadow steals her light. This scene is so telling. Simon's internal struggle. Imagine feeling like you're overshadowing someone you care about. After they harvest all the strawberries, the rain pours heavily, which makes them glad about it. Before her class begins, she decides to take a nap for a while. When Ian arrives at the room, he sees her falling asleep. He caresses her face, and it makes him blush. This tender moment is so unexpected. Ian's gentle touch and his reaction reveal a side of him that Louise and we rarely see. He waits for her to wake up, and when she does, she thinks the class is over and sees Ian by her side. She hands him the strawberries and tells him to eat them with someone he likes, meaning Stella. After that, he leaves and shares the strawberries with everyone he meets along the way. The council members think he's gone crazy. When Louise sees what he's doing, she's disappointed. He's supposed to share them with Stella. When there's only one left, he eats it with her and thanks her for it, but he's shocked when she responds that she likes him too. Louise immediately thinks of a way to escape the situation she put herself in. Ian just can't believe how crazy she was with the strawberries. As she heads to her room, he offers to escort her. However, he insists, considering the heavy rain. Walking down the dorm hallway, everyone thanks him for the strawberries. Louise concludes that he likes being popular, unlike in the original novel where he hated attention. This man really knows how to work a crowd. Despite the pouring rain, they make their way to her dorm. They talk about how she handles life without complaining, even with the Sweeny sometimes. When they reach her dorm, she slips, but Ian catches her. Everyone is shocked, but she doesn't mind and thanks him. Noticing her sulking because of the rain, he advises her to take a shower. He then retorts that, as her fiancé, he doesn't like Stella Lapis. Louise doesn't know what to feel, hence he says he cherishes her, but she reiterates that they're just friends. After that, he leaves so that she can take a rest. With the way he looks at you, no way he just sees you as a friend, Louise. Alone in her room, Louise is confused and uncertain. She feels the novel is changing, with Ian and Stella's relationship fading. She remembers their dance and wonders if he really has no feelings for her. She can't believe the male lead doesn't have feelings for the female lead. Apparently, there is a myth around the academy during exam season. Clare explains that if a student studies with paper and ink sold by the student council, they will get better grades. They then decide to fill their stock. By drawing lots, they can decide who gets to buy more paper and ink from outside the school premises. To our beloved female lead's dismay, she has terrible luck when she gets partnered up with the person she was trying to avoid. He has his personal guard, Hasher, follow him around, even inside the academy, so their safety is guaranteed. As if on cue, a man with neck-length hair that had colors of citrus moves towards Louise's side, with one knee bent down. It had been a long time since they met, as Hasher first met her while she was tending to plants in her greenhouse, hence the nickname. At the shopping district, Louise loses track of Ian. She looks around and finds him disguising himself with a dark cloak. Ian raises the rim of his cloak, telling her that his identity can't be revealed in the public. He also prepared a cloak for her too. Poor sweet Louise doesn't get why she'd need one too. Ian answers that they might bring a lot of attention if they see a magician and a student walking together. It's important to note that both of them are still wearing their school uniforms. He also adds that a magician is usually accompanied by a devilish lady, hinting that she should show some mean qualities as they walk around the district. He hands her a cloak, which obviously was of high quality. He reassures her that he was going to get her a present for entering the academy anyway. Inside a fitting room, Louise lifts the cloak up. It's in the color black, which is the color of a villainess. Oh, it seems that she's really trying her best not to go down the villainous path. Louise is even careful of the colors she wears. Just as she was almost done dressing up, she finds out that the buttons were tailored on the back part. She opens the door and pokes her head out. She isn't done yet, and Ian doesn't understand why. Louise blushes helplessly, pointing out to him that she can't reach the buttons on her back. This makes Ian bow down to apologize that this was in no way his intention to make her feel uncomfortable. He offers to help, convincing her as well that it'll be like when they were kids when they would use to brush off dirt from each other's clothes. It's ridiculous, but she was convinced anyway. When he's finished buttoning her up, he finally gets to have a proper look at her. Ian gawks at her for a while before being called back to his senses. He compliments her by saying it suits her. However, Louise takes it the wrong way, as if he's saying that the color of a villainess suits her. They continue their errand for the day. Both of them get inside the stores. Ian is super into his character of being the poor magician who gets treated like trash by his evil lady master. Louise doesn't think she'll be able to act as a villainess, but surprisingly, she does it so effectively that even the shop owners tremble in fear. After finishing their errand, they decide to relax at a cafe. As they are about to leave, they quickly spot a familiar figure, which makes them go back to their seats and hide. It's Professor Rosson. What's she doing here? Both Louise and Ian are close together, facing each other. She takes his hand and writes in his palm to communicate, which makes him grin. They both have no idea why Professor Rosson would be here out of all places. Was she meeting someone? Imagine their surprise when they found out it's Professor Wayne Hill. The two of them are in shock by the discovery. Professor Rosson scolds Professor Wayne Hill for being late. The professor's conversation turns blurry, and Ian's heartbeats start to be clearer for Louise. She still thinks that this is all a dream and not reincarnation. She now knows that she doesn't ever want to wake up from all of this. The conversation has come to a halt. The both of them stand up to leave. Louise gleefully thanks him for hiding her with his robe, which makes Ian kiss her on the forehead. He couldn't resist how lively she looked while she thanked him. When did our cold crown prince feel this way? It started when his mother, the late Empress, died. The people around them shunned her, even on her deathbed, as she was a commoner at birth. This made little Ian so angry that he bit his lip until it bled. Little Louise went close to him and handed her handkerchief, hoping it could bring him some comfort. Not long after that incident, he found himself following her path, her colorful light shining over his gray past. Even when as a child, he could tell that she has been avoiding him, as we all know the reason why. Realizing what he had done, he apologizes immediately. But it's all hopeless when he sees Louise frozen in shock. She shouldn't have done this, she thought. Since that day, Louise has started totally avoiding Ian. Louise has a lot of things in her mind regarding Ian's feelings towards her. The Ian she knows is supposed to fall in love with the original female lead, Stella. She tries brushing off the thoughts by focusing on studying, most especially for Professor Hewitt's class. She moves around the campus while updating her list of who has notes on Professor Hewitt's class, with Ian at the bottom of the list. Conveniently, she bumps into Simon, who immediately offers his notes. Simon meets with Ian as we find out that it was actually Ian who wanted to pass the notes to her. The next day, Louise looks for Simon to thank him for the notes, but he was nowhere to be found. She reaches the academy's rooftop when someone calls her out. It's Ian. At the school rooftop, Louise thanks Ian for the notes. As it turns out, she figured it out by herself. Our male lead thought he did a good job hiding his handwriting. He brings up the incident from the last time she was in contact with him and apologizes again for it. Louise pretends she doesn't know what he's talking about, which makes him look even sadder. The ever-sweet Louise can be mean when she wants to, it seems. Ian's expression makes her chuckle. She locks eyes with him while grabbing his hand, reassuring him that she's not and will not be bothered by trivial things such as this, with him. He bows and apologizes for what seems like the 100th time. He has silky smooth hair, she compliments. This is one of the things he's grateful for, as his hair is just like his late mother's. Was the late Empress happy with her life? Apparently, she was ignored by everyone except for her family and only friend, Louise's mother. Back before she became Empress, she was idolized by many. She was a genius in her teenage years. Ian wonders if she was able to use her intelligence or if people let her once she was Empress. Because of that, he exclaims that once he finds a girl he desires, he must wait patiently and devotedly for her until she is ready. He adds that he'll do even the impossible to keep her by his side, even if it means going against the fate set in motion by the god of this world. Sometime in the afternoon, Louise decides to keep the fresh strawberry jam in the conservatory so that she could share it with everyone. She even thinks about giving one jar to Stella. Along the way to the conservatory, she bumps into Professor Wayne. They exchange greetings normally, but then he asks her what she was doing in the tea shop a few days ago. This gives Louise cold feet. She explains that she was running an errand for the school council. He asks who was with her, but she bites her tongue as she didn't want to share. He tells her to be careful next time, as the Rosson family values talent over anything else. Sponsored students tend to get the top grade in their class. Louise doesn't understand why he's saying all of this, but he explains even further. Stella is this year's sponsored student, and she must be on top. Directly put, Professor Rosson is making sure Louise Sweeney doesn't get to the top grade at all costs. Louise Sweeney is unsure if she's remembering the details of her favorite novel correctly. Were there backstories that she didn't know about? Just as she was walking down her path, she spotted her favorite character, Stella. She calls out her name, but Stella avoids her like the plague, hastening her pace. She looks dreadful and drained. Stella Lapis mustn't disappoint the Lapis family's expectations, as she was their only hope. She meets with Professor Rosson, who reminds her to keep pushing for the top once again. The latter reminisces the time when the Emperor was just crown prince. She was one of those who were against the late Empress as well. For Professor Rosson, there is a designated place for everyone in the world, and this place involves status. The crown prince's birthday is coming up, and he is expected to come home. He sends invites to each grade's representative. Representing the freshmen, Louise gets the invite. She doesn't want to go as she has to study, but Ian pleads that she must. So she then asks what gift he would want to receive. A letter? Would such a small thing matter to him? Yes, as long as she pours out her true self in that letter, that's all that he'll ever want for now. Louise takes note of this for Stella. No! It won't bear the same sentiment if it was from some other person. Why can't you see that, Louise? Louise bumps into Stella in the hallway. The latter expresses relief that Louise will also be attending the Crown Prince's banquet. Stella then asks Louise how her exams went, to which she responds with perfect. Stella's expression is crystal clear, which in turn makes Louise feel guilty as she was supposed to be the top student in the original novel. Louise then changes the topic back to Ian. She tells the poor, haggard girl to give Ian a letter, and that he'll be thrilled to receive it from his true love, according to the original novel. Louise exits the conversation, feeling proud of herself that she won't be the villainess in their love story this time. She'll be the hero instead. At night, she composes the personal letter to be given to Ian for his birthday. She adds that she hopes they remain good friends throughout their lives. Exam day is here, and Louise Sweeney only has to ace this final exam to be top student once more. She is not the first student to arrive as she sees Stella not looking too good. She worriedly approaches her, asking her what she's feeling so she can go to the clinic to give her medicine. Without further ado, Louise helps as much as she can before exams start. At the time of the exam, Louise joyfully reads the questions and is feeling confident that she'll be able to answer most of it, if not all. In her peripheral vision, she spots a note that Stella had on her desk moments ago. Just as Professor Rosson walks near her, she quickly hides the note with her foot. She doesn't do a good job as the professor immediately confronts her. The professor picks up the note and finds out it's a note with information on the exam. She accuses Louise of such, but she stands her ground saying that it isn't hers. Professor Rosson asks each and everyone whose note that was. Louise knows it's Stella's. Much to her disappointment, Stella lies. Stella was supposed to be the honest female lead. Now it's clear who Stella Lapis really is. She lied because she has to. She wants to take down Miss Sweeny to where she belongs. Louise is brought by Professor Rosson in some office after being slapped across the face for possibly cheating on the exam. The professor is stubborn and leaves her inside, suspending her temporarily as she has a meeting to attend and not allowing her to attend Ian's banquet. Sometime in the afternoon, Stella is summoned by Professor Rosson. The latter reminds her of what she must do and to do her best for the banquet. As Stella goes out, she sees Simon just behind the door, seemingly having heard their conversation. But she doesn't care. She must do everything in her power to drag everyone, especially Louise, down. This way, no one will speak ill of her family ever again. The janitor opens the room and questions why Louise was there. Professor Rosson couldn't have kept her there because she was apparently in an official business and was never in a meeting. The dejected Louise retreats back to the dorm. She's about to knock on Ian's door when she remembers that the original Louise would bother Ian over the small things, so she immediately leaves. Just as she opens her room, Ian has been waiting inside. He pulls her to a hug and she lets him, feeling a rush of emotions inside. In there, Louise starts ranting and crying about the incident that happened today. Ian stays by her side and listens. Ian squeezes her closer to him. She initially tries to push away with the thought that Stella is supposed to be with Ian and not her. But he's very persistent and she needs consoling. She lets it happen. The two finally kiss. Louise doesn't care anymore. She needs this. OMG, just a few chapters in and we already get this? This is the best birthday gift Ian could ever ask for. It seems that Simon has told him everything. Louise is brought back to an office with Professor Rosson, who also has another person recording their exchange of words. Just as she was about to beat her with a stick in a form of disciplinary action, Professor Hewitt saves the day. He demands a thorough investigation for the incident, as per request by Louise. She had taken him as a formal representative for her. Good move, Louise. This takes Professor Rosson aback, as she has no choice but to go through with it. Ian and Simon were waiting outside for Louise, and not soon after, Clare and Dean appeared too. Apparently, the two of them also got into trouble since some students started bad-mouthing Louise. Everyone decides to help Clare and Dean work for the meals in the academy cafeteria for the day. Ian tries to sneak in a kiss for Louise, but she has fast reflexes. He sulks, and just as she is about to give in, he says he doesn't want to anymore, teasing her. Someday, she is definitely going to hit him. Louise visits Stella in the library to confront her, but Stella doesn't budge. She's not apologetic towards her even. She also shows her true colors by asking Louise if she deserves everything she has right now. This isn't the Stella she knew and loved. Just as Louise leaves, she contemplates on what Stella told her. It's clear that what she has right now were the things the original Stella was supposed to have. She is then stopped by a boy who claims to know her and who also lives next door to Ian. Is Ian friendly in this version? He offers her some jelly, which are the ones the student assistants give to students who hand out their exam report. Simon's sudden appearance makes this boy nervous and makes a run for it right as Louise was about to take some jelly. He notices Louise holding her bag in an unusual way. She explains that it's because it hasn't been fixed yet after it was tarnished from the last incident. He offers to give it a quick fix, along with a jar of jelly too. Louise is in the student council trying to get her mind off of things. Dean spots the jar of jelly beside her and asks if it was hers. She tells him Simon gave it to her, to his surprise. He tells her that it's basically like a confession towards another student, but she thinks it's silly and brushes it off. Later on, the exam rankings have been posted, and as usual, since Louise still believes that they're all following the novel's path, she's sure that Stella is going to be the top student in her class. However, Louise spots her name as the top student. Did she really take everything away from Stella? Stella rushes out and meets with Professor Rosson, who gets awfully disappointed in her, even slapping her the same way she did with Louise. Stella locks herself in her room, slumping behind her door. Break is fast approaching, and Louise won't be able to see anyone until the start of the semester again. She bumps into Simon and asks if he's ready to leave. He hasn't packed yet, so because of that, she wants to help him out because she's free. As thanks for the help, he gives her some cake and tea. They talk for a while, and Louise can't help but relate to him in her past life. Simon was always the type to be cautious with his surroundings as not to outshine the crown prince. She offers to go out with him sometime, to which he's looking forward to. Back at the student council, Ian is busy sorting out some stuff while Hasher bothers him, telling him about Simon and Louise being alone in the conservatory. This bothers him, especially after the recent incident when he told him about what had happened to Louise while he was out. A week earlier from the present time, Ian announces some bad news in the student council. They finally had enough funds to reinforce their rooftop, but construction had to be supervised under their care, which means they were to work during summer break. Ian, as president, is willing to stay for summer break. He pleads with Louise using his eyes to stay with him as well, to which she surrenders to. This makes Clare volunteer, dominoing to Dean as well. Back in the present time, Louise is ready to go and help out the student council when she looks at the rotting strawberry jam that was supposed to be for Stella. She starts thinking negatively again, as she just wanted to get along with Stella. Unless she acts like the original Louise, Stella might turn into a different person. Her only resolve in this is to avoid Ian. As if on cue, Ian enters her room and invites her out to make potato salad, as they received a lot of it since the groundskeeper felt bad for them for staying during summer break. Louise has fun while working in the kitchen for their potato salad. She also realizes that Dean has feelings towards Clare, but Ian pops her bubble saying that he can't confess because the former is engaged to someone else. The summer break moves by so fast with a lot of fun things happening between all of them. One night, they all play games. Surprisingly, Dean and Louise make a good team against the other two as they keep on winning all the games. Later on, when Dean and Clare fall asleep, Ian wakes Louise up. He has her get up as he wants to show her something. Oh my, I wonder what it is. Ian said to Louise that although it's usually cloudy, tonight isn't so as they stare at the starry night. Louise learns from Ian that he doesn't often spend time alone or away from lights. Upon seeing a starry night for the first time in a long time, Louise turns to Ian and thanks him cheerfully for taking her outside. Ian gives Louise a long look and reluctantly tells her he has noticed how close Louise and Dean are. Defensively, Louise explains to Ian that she and Dean are close because they are of the same age, so they both fight all the time, and that Ian has nothing to worry about. In response, Ian tells Louise that he is not worried and still recalls his promise to let Louise be for a year, but he promises her that he is satisfied just by standing by her side. Ian asks Louise what's up after noticing that her ears are turning red and that she is acting strangely. Louise reflexively slaps Ian's hand when she realizes he will touch her. After hearing what he said, Louise recognized that she cannot control her feelings for Ian. As frustrated as she is, she eventually acknowledges that she wants and likes Ian, the male lead, even though she's unsure if she truly feels the same as the original Louise and cannot turn back. When Ian was about to kiss Louise, Louise softly pushed Ian, but Ian didn't back down and swiftly hugged Louise. Ian then asks her to walk with him under the starry night. Louise worries about whether the story will resemble the original and is having trouble falling asleep because of her thoughts about what happened earlier. She then ignores her concerns and consoles herself by telling herself that the friendship she enjoys results from Louise's hard work and merit. A knock on the door occurs in the morning while Ian and Louise are talking. Ian stated that Hasher could be the only person who could have caused the disturbance. Hasher then informs Ian that Count Warren has passed away, and shock is written on their faces. At the late Count Warren's funeral, Louise laments that the Count yearned for Her Majesty's embrace until the very end. She begins to doubt whether this results from her deviating from the original plan. Afterward, while Louise and her professor are strolling, she makes eye contact with Ian, who gives her a subtle nod. She knows that even though Ian truly cherishes Count Warren, he cannot express his feelings casually. When the others and Louise are getting ready to head home, she decides to stay behind and meet with Prince Ian and the king. Later, when Louise is strolling, Stella calls her and angrily questions why she stayed behind. Louise politely responds that she's waiting for the prince and his majesty. Stella angrily accuses her of being preoccupied with other matters, and egotistical despite witnessing Count Warren's last moments. Stella's outbreak is cut off when Simon calls her and asks if this place is the academy. Stella is taken aback and quickly asks for forgiveness. Simon reprimands Stella, saying that a daughter of the Lapis family is in no position to judge and convey what Ian and Count Warren's wishes are. Hearing this, Stella apologized and excused herself. After the incident, Stella meets with Professor Lawson and asks her if she wants to achieve a place that's even higher so no one can ever dare to look down on her. Professor Lawson evilly smiles at her. Meanwhile, when Simon and Louise are left alone, Simon questions Louise about why she did not stand up for herself. Louise responds by telling Simon that Stella is the lady of the Lapis family and that she is just a Sweeny, and she appreciates Simon for standing up for her. Louise notices that her window is open as she gets ready for bed at night, and as she closes it, she sees Ian sitting there. After that, Louise approaches Ian and touches his face, inquiring if he's crying. Ian responds that he hasn't cried since that day. With concern, Louise asks Ian if he's okay and then hugs him. Louise gives Ian a quick, firm hug without waiting for an answer. Ian suddenly breaks down in tears and expresses his hidden emotions and regrets for Count Warren, whom he saw as both a father and a mother. Both Louise and Ian hug silently in the dark while crying. Ian sees Louise crying as she hugs him. After that, Ian tells Louise that he doesn't want to see her cry, but Louise tells him that it's better than crying alone. With gratitude, Ian promises Louise that if she cries, he will too. This couple is so cute. Louise and Ian are interrupted by a knock on the door, which makes Louise panic since it's the maids, and makes Ian hide under the bedsheets. Ian teasingly asks Louise if she can see him while he cutely hugs Louise's doll. These two never fail to be sweet, regardless of the situation. After changing her clothes, Louise quickly dismisses the maid and tells Ian that the coast is clear. Louise then annoyingly tells Ian to stop hugging her doll, but Ian still does it anyway. Ian appears wary, so Louise tells him he needs to get up before sunrise. Ian tells Louise that Heishe will assist him if he cannot walk alone, but he breaks off in the middle of his statement because he's envious of Heishe entering Louise's room. Louise tells Ian she's okay with it because she likes Mr. Heishe. Ian jealously replies that he cannot just hear something he cannot ignore, which Louise innocently tells Ian that it's something easily overlooked. Ian then swiftly pulls Louise close, thus making Louise move closer to Ian. Louise adoringly tells Ian that she will not force him into anything, and Ian responds that Louise never pushed him into anything. Louise then reminds Ian that she is the one who forces him to draw the line in their relationship. Ian asks Louise how she wants him to act toward her, and Louise innocently tells him to be his usual self. Ian tells Louise that it's a problematic answer since the meaning of Louise's words is her permitting him, and that is how he interpreted it. Ian worries that his kissing Louise will make Louise think that it is a momentary urge. Louise shyly tells him that if it wasn't a kiss, then what was it? Then they both tell each other to mark their calendar on that day. While carefully caressing Louise's face as she sleeps, Ian tells her that Louise cannot comprehend the depth of his love for her. Stella tells Simon that she is nervous around Louise Sweeney because she thinks she is gazing at the last queen, who was a target of jealousy and died as a result. Simon then asks Stella if she wants him to help her so that Louise won't be with Ian. Stella notices that Simon caught her real intention, and she tries to cover it by asking Simon if he likes Louise. Simon seriously tells Stella that even if he likes her, she has nothing to do with it, and even if she likes the prince, there's nothing that Stella can do. Simon then threatens Stella not to say those words out loud once she leaves the room. After the funeral, a show is held at the Castle Art Academy by the king to maintain a stable trading relationship, and every year, the Sweeney family is responsible for decorating the Art Academy. Still, the palace suddenly informs them they will not decorate the event. Since Louise is still invited, she plans to find out who stole their contract. As Louise strolls around the celebration, she hears someone express gratitude to the Academy director for allowing them to adorn the Academy. Louise wonders why they would be so unreasonable for a national event, even going so far as to reimburse her family for the cancellation. Louise interrupts them after hearing them remark on the rare flower's scent and reveals that the Prime Minister is allergic to it. When the director realizes the problem, she asks the person in charge to swap it for an artificial one, which is difficult because of the short notice. Louise then proposes to the director that they are willing to give their arrangement of fake flowers, but the director must sign the contract. The director then stated that she is underage and is unfit to become the legal contract holder. This director is one clever geezer. In the midst of Louise thinking of a solution, Ian unexpectedly introduces himself as Louise's guardian while showing the letter he got from the Duchess stating that she is Louise's representative. The director shockingly agrees to the contract signing. Anyway, their plan works, and while watching the show, Ian jokingly tells Louise that being of legal age is advantageous after all. Louise then curiously asks Ian how he obtained the letter from her mother, which he promptly explains his bold move. While watching the show, Louise cannot help but praise the song, though Ian tells her it's sad. Louise doesn't mind, even if it's about an ordinary man who falls in love with an angel. Ian unexpectedly touches Louise's hair as they are speaking. Thinking Ian will kiss her, Louise immediately closes her eyes, but Ian brushes the dust from her hair. Louise then turns around, ashamed of what she had done. The next day, Ian and Simon are playing archery. Ian shares with Simon that he wishes that Simon could face him earnestly. Simon then tells Ian that he too wants Ian to face him sincerely. Ian then confronts Simon about his feelings towards Louise, which Simon denies. Sensing something inside Ian, Simon promptly kneels and promises Ian that he will give himself to Your Majesty, and that Ian can use him fully as he is Simon Hillard, a wild animal Ian tamed. Simon added that if the wild animal is not used harshly, then it will forget its place and take everything from its master. Even though I feel slightly sorry for you, Simon, I still want Louise and Ian. Lost in his thoughts, Ian then thinks about what is important to him that Simon meant. Is it honor or Louise? His father introduces a young Simon to the young Ian. Young Ian happily says that he still remembers his cousin Simon. Simon will be with every curriculum that Prince Ian attends. After being introduced by his father, young Simon formally introduces himself while bowing to Ian. And Ian stops him and informs Simon that they do not have to greet him like this. Young Simon's father explains to Ian that they do not have the sacredness that Prince Ian is born with, and that is why young Ian must enjoy the respect he deserves. As the days pass, young Ian notices that if Simon knows the answer to the questions, he pretends otherwise. During their archery class, young Ian sensed that young Simon loved archery and enjoyed every moment of it. While practicing, Simon amazingly hit the target, and young Ian cheered for him happily. A staff member then gives young Ian the first commemorative arrow. Hearing this, young Simon did not say anything, even if deep inside he wanted to keep it. Unexpectedly, young Ian gives the arrow to young Simon since he is not a concession, and the honor is for young Simon who had hit the target. After playing together, young Ian was confused about why young Simon left the arrow. Young Ian then decides to bring the arrow his cousin left behind. Upon arriving at young Simon's home, the butler entertains him by showing the paintings of the Duchy family. While looking at the painting, young Ian hears a commotion which he hurriedly looks into. Arriving at the scene, young Ian witnesses the Duke slapping young Simon and reminding young Simon that if he wants to survive, he must not let anyone find hope in him and just let Prince Ian win. The Duke explains to young Simon that he does not have the power to save young Simon if some idiotic nobles try to find absolutely anything that makes young Simon better than the Crown Prince. It is truly horrid for young Simon to experience this kind of life. Louise realizes that her life lately doesn't follow the original story. It's like everything that gets influenced by her will change. Influences include the fact that the kingdom's guard solves the case of the drunk mercenary who sliced off the head of the bronze statue rather than Ian and Stella. Louise's thoughts are cut off when the maid informs her that Prince Ian's carriage has arrived. While Louise is happily eating the cakes, Ian tells her that while he will be gone, Louise must say 3 words that'll make him happy: eat 3 times a day and eat meat regularly. Ian also informs Louise that he will check the outside of the capital because the aid they sent still didn't prevent the flood, and he thinks that the nobles may use the aid money to gamble and hold horse racing. Louise is sad when she finds out Ian will visit the Lapis family. She then realizes that in the original story, the relationship between Ian and Stella became closer after the flood. Louise's thoughts are cut off, and Ian teasingly asks Louise if she will not stop him from going, which Louise declines since it's an official duty. While the maid is getting the books for Ian, Ian moves closer to Louise, telling her that he values the time spent in the academy, all because of Louise, his lovely fiancé. Ian gives Louise a passionate kiss, thinking one kiss is not enough since they won't see each other for weeks. The next day, while Simon bids farewell to Ian, Simon informs Ian that the Empress offered him a marriage proposal with Louise Sweeney, and he accepted it. Perhaps a rivalry is brewing in the air. May the strongest guy prevail. Simon sees the look of rage on Ian's face. He clarifies that Louise is receiving greater attention from the upper nobility, so he must accept the engagement. Ian then clarifies to Simon that the Sweeney family will benefit from the engagement if he means that Simon doesn't want the money flowing to other nobles and figures. Hearing Simon's plan, Ian warns Simon that a marriage arranged by the royal family is difficult to escape. Ian also cautions Simon that if he prolongs the wooing and is cornered with an imperial command, Louise Sweeney will inevitably become entangled in this mess. Simon assures Ian that he is okay. Ian continues by telling Simon that he worries that Simon will ask Louise for marriage since they're both at a marriage age, and that Simon always tries to hide his words and actions. Lastly, Ian then honestly tells his cousin that the person he is afraid of is Simon, which leaves the latter dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Louise receives a letter from Simon about their marriage situation at the Sweeney family place. The letter states that the marriage is only for formality and that Louise can spend as much money on the imperial family as she wants, since it's a tradition for the arrangers of the marriage to cover all the expenses. Next, Simon brings Louise to a bridal boutique, which makes Louise feel a little embarrassed since the boutique looks at status instead of money. To lighten the mood, Simon jokingly tells Louise to consider it a tax refund since her family pays many taxes. Louise is shocked upon entering since they are welcomed warmly by the staff. Louise then tried on many beautiful dresses and made Simon try on a suit too, which, by the way, makes Simon look more dashing. Afterward, Simon and Louise enjoy a hearty meal, play exciting games, and talk to each other. Louise notices that she feels at ease with Simon. While Louise and Simon are strolling under the rain, Louise notices a boy selling flowers. She then walked up to the boy and gave up her umbrella to the boy since the flower the boy sold must not get wet, to which the boy thankfully accepted. Simon hurries and shares his umbrella with Louise while wiping Louise's hair. Louise cutely shared that her great-grandfather sold flowers on the street when he was young, and her father taught her to respect the seller. Louise then gave the Eastern Valerian flower to Simon, which made him feel fluttery. Simon now begins to understand his feelings since Ian is not present. Afterward, Louise is having a hard time choosing her new umbrella. Simon suggests that she pick a bright color such as green or yellow since it suits Louise. Thus, Louise picks the color yellow like the Eastern Valerian flower she received. While riding in the carriage, Simon tells Louise that Ian knows why he accepted the proposal. Simon, it will be troublesome to the Sweeney family if Ian will officially announce their relationship, since the Sweeney family doesn't have a proper aristocratic background yet. Meanwhile, Ian finally arrives at the Lapis family place and is welcomed by Lord Lapis, who invites Ian to the dining room. While at the dinner table, Ian seriously tells Lord Lapis that he has checked the surrounding village and half of it is flooded. He asks if Lord Lapis is aware of the situation. Lord Lapis nervously explains that the rainy season is difficult to handle, even if they prepare. Disgusting, corrupt official, he did not even think of other explanations. Ian is dissatisfied with Lord Lapis's explanation, which makes him abruptly excuse himself, saying he feels tired. Lord Lapis worries since Ian didn't even try anything. Thus, he baits Ian with his daughter Stella, thinking Ian likes her. Lord Lapis hurriedly calls for Stella. Poor Lord Lapis, if you only knew who the prince liked. Stella instantly appears in front of Ian and gracefully greets the prince. While Stella greets Ian, Ian notices the expensive pieces of jewelry she is wearing, rejects her invitation, and says that she does not have something as little conscience. Ian tells her that her nature feels familiar and that it's because she is very much like her father. Ian then tells them with finality that he is leaving since he lost his appetite. Taken aback by what Ian tells her, she also excuses herself from dinner and goes to her room. She complains about how she and her father are similar when she works herself to death, while her father lavishly lives in riches with no effort. Stella's parents follow her into her room and tell her to stop sulking and go to the prince's room, since this is her chance to become queen and help her family from all their debts. These parents are disgusting! Stella declines, but her father angrily commands her to follow him, thus making Stella angrily follow her father. Meanwhile, Ian is in the room, missing and wondering what Louise is doing and remembering their kiss. Ian, you look like a lovesick puppy! Anyway, Simon and Louise arrived at the Sweeney family home. Louise thanks Simon for the lovely date and asked him what he wanted to do for his rest day. Simon innocently tells Louise that he wants to hear a fun story, to which Louise cutely replies that she will prepare a story that will make Simon laugh. Satisfied with Louise's answer, Simon slowly pats Louise's head and adoringly looks at her. Louise calls Simon's attention and again thanks him for helping her family. Maybe Simon's not a bad pick either. Several days later, Louise thanks Simon for helping her at the conservatory. Simon doesn't make a big fuss, admitting that his grandmother also asked him to help out at the conservatory. Simon suddenly remembers his grandmother asking him why he didn't have a second date with Louise. She also reminds him that his duty is something very different. Next, Louise starts to assist Simon and asks him if he wants to wear the work clothes he had used before, which Simon quickly agrees to. Out of the blue, Simon notices the ribbon on Louise's hair and asks her if he can touch it. Hearing this, Louise asks Simon if he will tie her ribbon again, telling him that he doesn't need to. But Simon convinces Louise by reminding her that she liked it before, which Louise happily agrees to. While Simon is retying Louise's hair with the ribbon, he asks if Ian gave Louise the purple ribbon. She innocently confirms, but now she curiously questions Simon how he knew that Ian decided the color of her ribbon. He explains to Louise that Ian decided that purple is Louise's color, making Louise realize it too. Louise then asks Simon his color, to which Simon flatly answers that he is probably black. Knowing this, Louise then comments that black is a nice color since she thinks that it embraces all other colors so generously. But Simon thinks otherwise since for him, black is the color that engulfs all different colors. While everyone is busy working in the conservatory, Louise looks at Simon and realizes that everyone is comfortable around him. Moreover, he is working hard to help her. She then approaches him and asks him to join her for a walk outside, to which Simon agrees to. As they're walking outside, rain starts to pour, causing Simon and Louise to quickly find shelter under trees. Louise begins sneezing as they wait for the rain to let up. Worried, Simon announces that he will get her an umbrella, but Louise stops him and tells him that he might also get sick. When Louise holds his hand, Simon is stunned and he realizes, right then and there, that he doesn't think that he can give up Louise to Ian. Please, my heart aches for Simon. This is too cruel. In the Lapis residence, Stella barges into Ian's room unannounced, but Ian quickly dismisses her and tells her to leave. Stella disregards his command and starts to blurt out that she knows he didn't come just to inspect the flood damages, but also to investigate how the Imperial funds were used. Thus, she offers to tell Ian everything to avoid wasting his time. Stella narrates that her father wasted the palace's funds on gambling and horse racing, and nothing is left now. Stella also gives away that the records of how the money was used can be found in the library. After listening to Stella's confession, Ian smirks, remarking that he could head home early. But Stella is not done with her confession. She also confesses that she dropped the note during the exam to get Louise into trouble and accepted Professor Rosson's offer to help cancel the contract between the Sweeney family and the art conservatory. After confessing everything, Stella asks Ian to destroy House Lapis. Ian comments on her insolence and says the Imperial family doesn't do anything based on personal feelings. Thanks to her confession, someone from the palace would arrive tomorrow to investigate more. If it is up to Ian, he'd expel Stella from the academy, but he knows that Louise will not like it, which makes Stella feel guilty. Stella's a hypocrite! Several days later, Simon visits Louise, who is preparing for their meeting with the Queen Dowager, Simon's grandmother. While helping Louise fix her hair, Louise asks Simon if they will say those words to each other, words that would deepen their relationship. Simon says it's needed since it's tradition and assures Louise not to overthink it since those words are merely lies. Listening to Simon, Louise realizes that even if these words are lies and can prevent anyone from having false hopes, she still finds it cruel to say them to him personally. Also, these past few years, she has noticed how Simon cares for her and knows that what Simon feels might be more profound. Meanwhile, at the Lapis residence, Stella's father is stressed because the royal guards confiscate their valuables. Stella is unbothered as she stands at the corner observing the commotion. As the guards confiscate the things, Stella notices someone carrying the gown that Louise gave her once. She springs into action, stopping the guard and requesting to keep the dress. The guard reluctantly agrees, thinking nothing of the gown. Stella takes a walk down memory lane. She looks at the gown happily as Louise gave it to her to wear. But that night, a delivery arrives, and it's a gown from Rosson. She's ordering Stella to wear it. Because of this, Stella is reminded of her jealousy for Louise for getting everything she wants. Thus, Stella hides the gown Louise gave her for the event, deciding that they both can't get what they want. So stupid of you, Stella. Bad move. You never learn. Meanwhile, Louise and Simon are having tea with the Empress Dowager. While they're drinking tea, Louise looks at Simon and realizes that she may have been calling Simon my lord all this time, but she might have never acknowledged this royal side of him. She had never seen Simon's picturesque smiles or heard him speak so eloquently before. Later on, Simon approaches Louise and asks her for a dance. After their dance, Simon looks at Louise, remarking that it always rains when they're together, just like today. Even if the weather is all the same to Simon, he wants to dedicate the rain to Louise, since most of their memories are shared in the rain. Even if the sun can erase these memories, and even if it takes many seasons, Simon knows that in the end, rain always comes back. As he dedicates the rain to her, he then asks for her forgiveness. He cannot request the continuation of their relationship. Why is Simon such a green flag? It's making me sad. Listening to Simon, Louise realizes that he is not following the script. She knows that if she followed the script and refused this marriage, it would look suitable for the Sweeney family, but she's not sure it would be good for Simon, so in turn, she also doesn't follow their script. Louise stares at Simon, thanking him for agreeing to meet with her. Whatever his decision is, she'll accept it without fail. She also adds that even if he disagrees with her about the meaning of black, she still believes that black generously embraces all other colors, representing him a lot. Oftentimes, being generous can be painful. Still, for Louise, it is more precious than anything else. Oh, I hope Simon also finds a woman who will love him. The following day, Simon tells Ian that he couldn't propose to Louise, to which Ian replies that he also didn't think that Simon would do so. Simon then tells Ian that for the first time in his life, he couldn't give up something. The same logic will probably apply to the feelings he has for Louise. His whole life, he's always asked to give things up, but this is the first time he's giving up something voluntarily. Simon asks Ian what color Ian thinks he is. Ian's reply is identical to that of Louise. He tells Simon that the color black suits him since, for Ian, it's a good color that also embraces all the other colors. Hearing this, Simon feels at ease. Later that day, while Louise is hanging her blankets, Ian and Simon suddenly appear, catching her off guard. Then Simon asks Louise when she plans to return the handkerchief she borrowed. Embarrassed, she quickly hands it to Simon, telling him that she has thoroughly washed and perfumed it. As Louise finishes, Ian approaches her, brushing his thumb over her lips. He asks her to go to the student council office since he has something to discuss with her. While she's walking towards the office, she suddenly remembers the kiss she and Ian shared, and it's all because of his flirty actions. Upon arriving at the office, Louise is surprised to see that Clare and Dean are present. She soon realizes that it's an actual and serious meeting. Ian starts the meeting by discussing the issue within the Lapis residence, entailing that Stella will likely arrive back at school a week late. Thus, the school library requests someone to work in her place. The other agenda concerns the Scribes recording and following Ian around. Knowing this, Louise realizes that the two scribes must have come here to record the Crown Prince's sacred days in the Academy for future generations. Ian informs him that he hopes everyone behaves in the following days, since he doesn't want to be forever remembered as a horrible person. This, however, frustrates Dean because of the setup and having to be conscious of his every move. After their meeting, Clare and Louise walk together. Clare casually asks Louise how she is, to which Louise replies that she's okay. However, Louise then remembers the kisses she shared with Ian, and she is torn between telling Clare about it or not. She hesitates to tell Clare since she thinks her relationship with Ian is still complicated. Louise then invites Clare to their conservatory and tells her she can go with Dean. However, Louise notices the shift in Clare's mood. Worried, Louise tells Clare that she is always there to listen and help, which Clare is thankful for. In the following days, Louise notices Ian pretending to be a model student as his scribes follow and record him. Louise starts to feel annoyed because Ian is so different from his usual self. I guess this is what happens when you're aware of someone watching your every move 24/7. While Louise is walking, someone suddenly grabs her and pulls her inside a room. It's Ian trying to hide from the scribes. Ian quickly hugs her, and while hugging Louise, he starts to feel calm and relaxed for the first time in a while. He tells Louise that he has been very anxious for the past few days. Ian then looks at Louise and confesses that even if she likes Simon, he will do everything to get her. He then asks Louise to be his girlfriend and to give him her blessing. Hearing this, Louise feels touched. As the Crown Prince, only his parents, the priest, and his lover can give him a blessing. Thus, Louise gladly accepts it and then gives him her blessing. I want her blessing too! The following day, while Louise is happily eating the sweet grapes the groundskeeper gave, she's curious about the pretty girl walking in the conservatory. When she's in closer proximity to the girl, Louise is surprised that the lady is actually Hasher dressed in women's clothes. Hasher then explains that he is, for now, Rosewood since he is working undercover. He also proudly shares that Simon helped him fix his hair, which shocks Louise since she thought he might be uncomfortable and unwilling to help with the disguise. Simon is very talented with hair, and his future girlfriend is lucky. Hasher interrupts her mid-conversation, pulling her aside as he notices someone conversing near them. They then realize that it's Clare and Dean who are talking. Clare and Dean are arguing about what happened at the party the other night. Dean argues that if he didn't kiss Clare that time, she would look pitiful in front of her cheating fiancé. Hearing this, Clare remembers how her fiancé asked permission to leave for a meeting. Clare already knows he'll meet with his side chicks, but she's okay with it since the engagement is purely transactional. His fiancé's parents had signed a contract stating that Clare will inherit their family business. Thus, Clare thinks that this isn't such a bad marriage deal for herself. However, Clare's plans change when Dean discovers her fiancé is cheating. To retaliate, Dean kisses Clare right in front of her fiancé, thus disrupting Clare's original plan of just letting him be. After Dean's stunt, Clare clarifies to him that she doesn't need help. In fact, she's a calculating adult willing to sacrifice anything to get what she wants. However, Dean remarks that Clare can use him if she wants to. I'm still rooting for you, Dean. Louise feels guilty after eavesdropping on Clare and Dean's conversation while Hasher sits pretty. Later that day, Clare thanks everyone for joining their meeting. One held in secret because of the scribes who were recording Ian's daily life at the academy. Clare proceeds to the matter at hand. 2 students were caught kissing, and coincidentally, since Ian was around to witness it, the scribes have also recorded it in their historical work. Clare confirms that it was indeed recorded, but luckily, the student's name wasn't mentioned. Thus, she asks the council to remind everyone to be discreet with their public display of affection, especially around Ian and the scribes. The next day, Ian is shocked since he never thought a policy would actually be implemented stating that students shouldn't kiss in front of him. Clare clarifies that there isn't, and Ian comments that it's not like the other students won't kiss just because they were told not to. They will just have to hide it well, and few places are perfect for them to do so. Louise then innocently asks Ian where the best spots are. Ian swiftly moves closer to Louise, trapping her and blushing since their faces are closer. Ian notices that Louise is uncomfortable with how close they are. Thus, he tells her he wishes Louise to be comfortable and not scared around him. Louise bravely tells Ian that she isn't scared, but she's cut off when Ian quickly kisses her. While kissing, Louise notices one of the scribes eyeing them. As she makes eye contact, the scribes place a finger over his lips, signaling to keep it a secret. Ian notices that Louise is uninterested as he kisses her, so he stops. He voices out that if she doesn't like it, then he promises to do better next time. Afterwards, Louise finds an opportunity to talk to that one scribe. Upon approaching him, the scribe tells her she doesn't need to worry about anything since he will not record it. She feels relieved at first, but when she hears him say it's because she's an embarrassment, she pauses. Hearing his words, Louise feels dejected since she knows that it's a conclusion he came up with based on his belief that an untitled lady like her is unfit for Ian, a crown prince. Ugh, disgusting man! I thought he was just being nice. The following day, Ian meets with Marquise Bourgie, who is furious about the issues regarding a student couple being in the historical record. His own daughter at that. He wants to eliminate his daughter's scandal, but Ian tells him that if he pulls his daughter into the middle of this issue, they're confirming to everyone that it's her. Hence, Ian suggests that they nullify his daughter's attendance at the academy, meaning there will be no record of her attending it. The Marquise, still furious, helplessly agrees. The Marquise then attempts to get every record of his daughter, Teresa, but the person in charge declines his request. Teresa is the only one who can legally access her record since she's now at the right age. Knowing this, Teresa rejects her father's orders as she admits to wanting to stay in the academy. Ian then tells the Marquise that his daughter will learn much more in the academy than anywhere else, which will soon help him in the future. Hearing this, the Marquise realizes that Teresa is a grown lady, which makes him proud, but he still keeps a poker face. Afterwards, Ian and Clare commend Louise for devising a plan to help Teresa, but the scribes suddenly arrive to discuss with Ian. When the young scribe is about to follow Ian and the senior scribe, Louise takes a moment of his time, remarking to the young scribe that she doesn't need her name to be on historical records. Louise realizes that as long as Ian is mentioned in the records, then she is too, since they have been influencing each other since childhood. Unbeknownst to the young scribe, Ian and his senior are actually listening in on their conversation. Hearing Louise stand up for herself makes Ian proud. Ian then turns to the senior scribe, requesting that they put it into writing how madly in love he is with Louise Sweeney. Ian, stop setting the bar so high! I'm going to be a spinster at this rate! Finally, the scribes return to the palace, leaving the next semester to begin without incidents. Of course, Stella, who has been absent for the week, has also returned. During the break, the dishonorable truth about the Lapis family was revealed to everyone. Because of this, Stella had to deal with matters concerning her household for a whole week. While in the library, Louise remembers that in the original story, she is one of the people who used that unfortunate event to bully Stella. Still, now she is confident that no one will bully Stella, because who else would bully her if not the original villainess Louise Sweeney? She thinks everything will work out well for Stella, that is, until she's proven wrong. After borrowing a book, she hears a girl say the exact line she said in the original novel, bullying Stella to no end. Louise panics and runs away. She doesn't want to involve herself for fear of becoming a villain again. As the days pass, Stella takes in everyone's maltreatment. She remembers how Professor Rosson always wanted her to be the top student, and she had no choice but to oblige. After all, Rosson is the only one helping her despite her family issues. As Stella walks around, her feet bring her to the conservatory, appreciating its beauty. She reminisces about the time Louise gave her the strawberries from the conservatory. Stella then begins to spiral in an emotional fit, remembering things that trigger her. She runs away, but she accidentally bumps a lamp, causing a fire. Luckily, Professor Wayne arrives to help Stella, urging that her safety is more important. Because of this, Stella starts to cry since it is the first time someone has expressed worry for her safety. If only Professor Rosson hadn't sponsored her, she might have lived a better life. The following day, all the students gossip about last night's fire incident, accusing Stella of being the perpetrator. Louise hears all the rumors, but she turns a blind eye, fearing that the novel would revert to its original plot. Mid-thought, Ian suddenly appears, bringing lemon tea and requesting that she deliver it to Simon, who caught the flu. On her way to Simon, Louise notices a student about to attack Stella with scissors. Panicking, she stops the student but causes Stella to fall from the stairs. Louise is horrified at the scene. She realizes that in the novel, the children of the noble families that were harmed by the Lapis family's corruption began to bully Stella. In the past, Louise always joined them in ridiculing Stella. But now this scene where Stella falls under the stairs has already transpired. And Louise knows that, just like in the novel, everyone will blame her. This makes Louise worry more. Will she never escape the original novel's plot to turn her into a villainess? Yeah, but not now, right? Louise is in a dire situation and remembers how everyone turned their back on her in the original novel. She feels the fear enveloping her body as she realizes that Stella's fall is destined to be blamed on her despite not being involved in the bullying. She freezes there as she watches Stella's unconscious body lying on the floor, while the bullies stand around as if unbothered by what they did. The council president comes to witness the event as fear heightens in Louise's heart, asking herself if it was the end of her fairy tale. Yet all the more she feels the weight of her guilt. Inside her heart, just hiding in the pretext of the original novel by not defending Stella from the bullies seems off and unpleasant to her. She blames herself for the girl's worst experiences. She then prepares herself for Ian's cold gaze, but surprisingly, he caresses her with a worried look in his face, telling her to write a statement later on as the only witness of the event. Louise thinks it's strange of him to still be calm towards her, and even more soft-spoken towards her after that incident based on the original novel. Yet it gives her a little sense of relief for her life. At night, she tries to write a statement of the event, hoping she can reveal the bullying. However, fear continued to flow inside her of the possibilities that the favor may go against her. She crumples the letter and begins to stress herself out, not noticing Ian's presence by her window. Soon enough, she hesitates to tell him the truth of her origin, how she turned into Louise Sweeney one day from a girl who was pressured and abused by her family in a different world. She feared, yet all of what she told him, Ian accepted wholeheartedly. Get me a man this mature! I am so relieved to hear such news! Now go fall in love more! At first, she reveals how awful she feels for putting Stella in a situation like that. But Ian assures her how much goodness she influences everyone around her, and how important it is to hold on to what she has now by acting on them wisely. This makes her cry all her frustrations out, and slowly she concludes that the Louise Sweeney who is the villainess is slowly turning into an innocent girl. And slowly their lips softly bond into a kiss. Yes, a deserved kiss! In the castle, Louise takes the dessert away from Dean, who seems to be very determined to devour the whole thing, yet she guards it with her life. It was the only cake left, and she is saving it for Clare, who is currently sick in her room as of the moment. At the moment of the bickering, Ian arrives to witness them and immediately sees the chance to be alone with the lady. He commands Dean Tracis to bring the cake to Clare immediately and to cater to Clare's needs after. After his instructions, Louise volunteers to deliver it herself, yet Ian rejects her offer and informs her about the list of work they have to do for the day together. Defeated, Louise sighs in disappointment and relays the cake to Dean. Meanwhile, Dean, who also feels defeated, prepares himself for this forced mission. That's strange. Go and check on her. Be excited. Dean enters Clare's quarters and recognizes her face. Worry plasters on his face as he witnesses the ill state of the lady whom he so admires. He then awfully speaks towards her as if he disliked her from the beginning. However, as their conversation continues, he begins to see how thin her blanket was to keep her warm. Her face is burning red from her fever, and how she seems to try independently doing everything for herself while he worries so much. So despite the attitude, he offers so many things from the thick blankets to warm soups, and the cake that Louise kept protecting a while ago so Clare can have some. She remembers the old times when Dean was such a little boy who spends his time on her bedside as she tells him tales. She then teases him about those nostalgic times. In the middle of speaking, she mentions her slight insecurity about her aging hair and how good her condition was before. Dean takes her aback, as he frankly speaks his mind on how pretty she was and how beautiful she is still in the present. This guy got some riz in his bones! He then continues to speak as he tucks her to sleep. He honestly reveals how he disapproves of her husband and how bad her taste is for men. And in that moment, she knows how Dean loves her so much as he offers himself to be used by Clare if she has to. Being forced into marriage is something Clare is put into right now, but Dean can give up everything for Clare, even his honor if it is for the woman he loves. And as their hearts yearn for this unforbidden love, their lips collide for a kiss. Oh no, forbidden love? And everyone's falling in love too! Louise walks through the hallway when a mistress comes to find her. She is then led to the office of Professor Rosson, the one who despises Louise so much and will take every ounce of opportunity she can get to take her out of the way and out of the academy. Louise comes closer to Professor Rosson, and not too long since she arrives, Rosson insults Louise's humble greetings for no reason. As the conversation commences, Rosson reveals that another student submitted a statement which suggests that Louise is not the only person to witness Stella's fall. Suspicious and foul-feeling, Louise continues to observe how things are turning until Rosson conveys the concerning news. She tells Louise that all the statements, including Stella's letter, led to the culprit of the incident. Rosson then takes a piece of note for Guardians that signifies that a student has committed a huge sin against the rules, implying that this case's suspect is Louise herself. Louise's stomach churns as she continues to speak for herself. She tries to defend her innocence and questions how things turned out this way without enough evidence. Rosson then does not hold her mouth from speaking awfully and lets all her madness towards Louise out. She wants to teach Louise how nobility works to make the system prosper, how hybrid Louise is, and how unfit she is in the academy. Not long, Louise feels defeated and keeps her silence as the lead helper tries to mitigate the situation by sending a letter to the dean first before the parents. However, things do not favor Louise as Stella enters the room proclaiming how she has written her statement word by word as what Rosson instructed her to write. Ugh, girl, I don't even know what to say. I am frustrated. Rosson, you're supposed to be teaching etiquette, which you obviously do not have. Flashback to the night prior to Louise, Rosson, and Stella's encounter. Stella wakes up in the middle of the night after the fall incident she was involved in at the academy. As she tries to clear her eyesight from her sleep, someone arrives to her aid. It is Professor Rosson, who seems to be in a good mood. Rosson explains Stella's condition, Stella being unconscious for a couple of hours, and how Stella is currently up at Rosson's place at the moment. What stuns Stella is the news she received from the professor. She is told to write a statement to be presented to the Academy's Board of Trustees so as to act upon the incident formally. Stella knows how Louise has been put into a dire situation with her by the bullies, yet she keeps it in her mind, worried of Louise being falsely blamed again. However, her eyes widen as Professor Rosson tells her to write that it was Louise's entire fault. This professor is starting to annoy me. How childish! She does not argue with the professor, nor does she have any decisions on her statement yet. Upon clearing the room where she stayed, the helper tells her to bring with her the beautifully picked red flowers. As she walks out of the building, she wonders who got her the flowers, having already a hint of the person, but with no confirmation. Her feet drag her to the greenhouse, where she coincidentally meets Professor Wayne Hill. As if knowing about her queries, he offers to accompany her to where the flowers in her pot may have been taken as it was picked from the garden. As time passes, Wayne stops Stella right on time when Rosson arrives to greet him. Good save. I would not even want to face the old prop's face. She gives me nightmares. After such, she thanks him for hiding her from that overly strict professor, and they arrive in the forest. As soon as they reach the top of the hill, Stella falls in awe of the beauty of the flowers, as she realizes how much effort the person has to go through to pick them. In her heart, she thanks Louise for being such a good friend. How she learned to respect good people through her, and now she's no longer scared to stand up for herself. In the present day, she barges in to let Professor Rosson and Louise know that she has finally finished her statement. Professor Rosson lashes out as she learns about Stella's decision on the matter. Stella reveals who the culprit truly is and does not betray Louise as she is innocent since the beginning. However, stronger than ever before, Stella stands firm to her decisions and explains how she gets to decide for herself. Ah, such a brave soul! Go, go! This does not stop Rosson from ruining their lives as she takes Stella's written statement from the helper and tears it down in pieces. Prior to that, Rosson even reminds Stella of her family's status. She begins to state how she should choose to be wise and follow her instructions in order to regain power for her family. Yet Stella does not listen to her, causing Rosson to lash out. But as she is about to slap Stella, Louise comes to protect her and takes the hit instead. With such force, Louise's cheek is swollen and may have to go to the infirmary to put some topical meds. However, the professor still puts Stella in a situation to choose her family or let Louise fall. But in a good light, Stella stands firm to what she believes is right. So in the infirmary, the two girls make amends and apologize for what they think they did wrong. But as soon as the ambiance gets lighter, a helper comes to fetch Louise as her mother has arrived. Scared of her mother, she begins to explain rapidly, but she jolts in surprise when she sees Hasher dressing up as her mother. She almost laughs, but understands the situation right after seeing Ian, who comes to be the representative of the Imperial family to handle Stella's case. However, Ian's mood turns sour as soon as he sees the Band-Aid on Louise's face. Oh my, do not touch the people he so loves, dear Professor, or take the consequences. Yes, be cold. Ian's eyes lay on the Band-Aid plastered on Louise Sweeney's face. Learning of the violence that was implied on the love of his life, he begins his subtle threats. He instantly calls for the temple to tend to Louise's wounds, but is stopped by Professor Rosson, and instead, she demands the school nurse. Ian does not let this pass and uses his title and highest nobility to gain privilege, yet the mad professor does not let him and instead castigates his abuse of power. She intends to put him down by boasting her status in the academy, how the Rosson family built the school's prestige. Yet again, Ian is never intimidated. Oh, well, lady, nice try. Rosson takes out a fake statement to present to the board by forging Stella's penmanship. It states how Rosson wants to settle things via Stella's writing, especially including Louise's condemnation. The entire situation shifts into a problematic one until Wayne Hill appears in front of everyone. He is up for a revelation regarding his status, privilege, and how his career was guided by the power of the Rosson family. He then reveals how Professor Rosson has been giving him opportunities for his research and why he ended up being this high up in his career. In return to giving up his status and career, he wants the council to investigate Professor Rosson and her family. Everyone, including Stella, who is now tearing up from this bravery, are also scared of what may happen to the young researcher. He then brings with him the original draft of Stella's writing and compares it to what Larson showed. The dean comes just right on time and is up to leave and deliver the message to the Academy's administrators instantly. While all settles, Ian hands over to Louise a botany book that Wayne wanted her to have. Strange for her to have something returned to her that wasn't even hers in the first place, she wonders. Maybe the book has a secret in it? Or does this mean Wayne wanted her to take care of the greenhouse as she always does? Today is Simon Hillard's birthday. Presents begin to crowd him as it multiplies every hour from different nobles and families. Simon continues to stay at his father's office for a thing that he wanted for the day. The butler comes in to bring more presents from the Count, but Simon instantly refuses to receive them and commands the butler to return them back with the letter he has already written. He then focuses on speaking with his father, who seems to be quite busy with paperwork. He reluctantly asks his father if he can go to the Sweeney's greenhouse for his birthday. At first, his father stays silent and contemplates on it until minutes after, he agrees with his son's wishes and lets him. This places a huge smile on Simon's face as he walks away. His Highness knows how Simon was just trying to be happy with his present when he just wants to be somewhere instead. Hence, Simon spends his birthday at the greenhouse when he spots Ian and Louise together, holding out so much stuff including presents. They were actually out shopping a few hours ago, and when they finally see Simon, they hand over their gifts. Boy, you even asked yourself if you're still into her. Yes, you probably are. While conversing, Simon and Ian speak their mind, subtle enough to let Louise notice their deal, that Ian shall always be the undefeated wall for Simon, and that stands firm till today. Suddenly, the Queen arrives and requests the three of them to meet her. So, archery is being played by the men while the Queen sits with Louise to audience the game. Noticing how Simon intentionally aims imperfectly, she begins to realize what the Queen is telling her. The Queen dedicates her heart and remaining strength to support Simon on what he truly wants. I have a feeling about this, but I won't judge so early. Fingers crossed. The archery game between Ian and Simon is still ongoing when the Queen opens a conversation with Louise as they both sit to watch the game. The Queen makes Louise drown in her own thoughts as she enjoys the game. In context, the Queen shares to Louise about Simon and how he has been suppressing his desires and what he truly wants, just to be purposeful and responsible for his inheritance. Yet suppressing such aspirations can lead to self-loathe and pressure. So far, these things aren't clear to Louise yet, which keeps her preoccupied for several minutes. All of them fall curious of the Queen's interruption, including Louise, who snapped back to reality. The Queen reveals about Simon's letter to his father regarding his education. A little history, Simon has come to the kingdom to study in the academy with his cousin Ian, and the Queen knows how suppressed and choked Simon feels to be forced to be content. Hence, the Queen wants him to break free from his shell. So Ian and Louise learn of Simon's consideration on studying abroad. At first, Ian seems to misunderstand Simon's feelings, thinking how weak Simon is to just easily give up on their rivalry. Yet Simon explains how he declined the offer. The Queen, learning of so, feels disappointed as she hoped that he would be the Simon she knew, fearless and ambitious. Yet who makes Simon pursue the decision is Louise, who knocks him to understand how he can become someone above others too. Hence, the Queen giggles in glee as she leaves the three of them to travel back home. The three of them, Louise, Simon, and Ian, celebrate Simon's birthday with desserts and a cake from the Queen. Ian begins to hand over his gifts to Simon one by one, but Louise interrupts the talk, asking about Ian's large gift for Simon. Suspicious enough, Ian denies having the gift and explains how it was defective and that he left it somewhere to discard. Louise continues the gift-giving by handing over her small gift. As Simon opens it, it is a black ink. I think you can do better than that, girlie. Why ink? As the party continues, night befalls, and so does Louise, who falls asleep on the chair. The men opened the gift in question a while ago, as it was a bottle of wine which is supposedly forbidden in the dorm. Nonetheless, they clink their glasses and converse about Simon's journey abroad. Simon reprimands Ian on lying to their first love. They cannot even believe how similar their tastes are in wine and even in love. Hence, they both continue their rivalry, but with clarity and no guilt on Ian's side for pursuing Louise despite Simon's feelings. Winter arrives and the academy is covered with snow. Louise walks out of the academy and finds Clare, who is similarly wrapped up for the cold weather. As soon as they both give their greetings, Dean passes by and catches Louise's attention. However, Clare notices the burning red face from afar, and so she checks Dean's temperature. He has a high fever, which causes Clare to panic. So she pulls Dean and asks Louise to excuse them as she's rushing him to the clinic. On the way, Dean asks her to go shopping with him next week, yet she declines, in the hopes of ending their feelings because she's engaged to a different man. Dean notices her masquerade that everyone does not ever notice. Only Dean can. Such an observant guy. This highlighted how much she fears to lose him, but also how complicated things are between them. However, Dean reassures her that he is always waiting for her even after she comes back today from the capital. Meanwhile, at night, Louise, Ian, and Stella are working on the books for the library's funding when a book has a seal of the Muellers on it. Ian looks at it strangely, trying to recognize which family it is. Then they all find out that it was the family who arranged marriage with Clare. Why do I feel like something's going on? With more suspicion arising, Dean slams the door open to inform them that Clare hasn't come back from the capital. It is strange enough for her to be late and beyond the curfew, hence worry and fear cross their faces. Oh no, something is definitely going on! Hours ago, Clare Iris had left the academy to do a final fitting of her wedding dress. She beams with delight upon seeing how well the dress fits her. The pearls and gold accent tying everything together. Suddenly, a drunk Mr. Muller, her fiancé, storms in, dragging Clare forcibly out of the room. This is all because of that kiss between her and Dean. He doesn't show her any remorse as he throws her into their room as if she's some rag doll. Immediately, he procures a wedding contract, urging her to sign it and make their marriage official. The nerve of this man! Seeing that Clare is unwilling to do so, he raises a hand, attempting to crush her face with brute force. As Clare braces herself for the pain, the door flies open and Count Iris, her brother, comes running in. Count Iris is fuming. How dare he lay a hand to his sister like that? Without hesitation, he proclaims that Clare's engagement contract with House Muller is officially off. He would never allow his sister to marry a wife-beater. Clare's fiancé is in shock, ready to object, but Count Iris cuts him off. He's in no position to object, especially when he was hiding House Muller's bankruptcy all along. Out of the room, Count Iris coldly tells Clare he'd be arranging a new marriage for her. Clare tries to stand her ground, asserting that she wants to prove her worth on her own, and not through marriage, but her brother remains unconvinced. Like clockwork, Ian walks in, much to Count Iris's surprise. He tells the Count that he'd be scouting Clare as an official staff member. Unbeknownst to the Count, Ian is merely trying to buy his friend's escape. Ian escorts her out, but little does Clare know that Dean had come along. Ian makes himself scarce, leaving both Dean and Clare to deal with their unresolved feelings. Somebody's being a wingman. After a while of awkward silence, Dean is the first to speak to Clare. He apologizes because as much as he wanted to save her on his own, He knew getting Ian involved would be the quickest way to get her back. If that wasn't enough, he felt more useless because he could only tell Count Iris about the bankruptcy, which means he didn't really do anything himself. Clare gives him a soft gaze, stifling a giggle through her smiles. Dean may feel useless, but she knows that if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have seen the light of day again. Dean can't help but blush as Clare expresses her gratitude, but with Clare in a fit of sneezes, he decides not to confess his feelings. Oh, come on! Way to ruin the romantic atmosphere, Clare! Suddenly, his eyes spot Clare's bruised wrists. Anger then boils inside him. He should have beaten her fiancé to a pulp! Finally, the two arrive back at the academy. Clare is unable to move, her legs frozen from being so tense. Dean blushes a deep red. The only way to move forward is by giving her a piggyback ride. Carrying Clare on his back, he croaks out a proposal, albeit indirectly. She's wearing a wedding dress, and although it's pretty, he'd want nothing more than to be with her as she picks out her next one. Hearing his words, Clare becomes wide-eyed. It's probably the best and the worst proposal she's ever received. Back in her room, Clare is ambushed by a worried Louise. For some reason, being with Louise just gives her comfort and relaxation, something she's very grateful for. As the two settle down for the night, she confesses something to Louise. She's very much in love with Dean. Unbeknownst to her, Dean is actually outside their door, falling to his knees as he takes in her words. Okay, I take it back, Clare. You absolutely know how to bring in the romance. The following morning, Louise is summoned to give her statement on the issue involving Professor Hill and Rosson. As soon as she finishes, she exits the room only to find Stella calling out to her. Stella checks up on Louise, unable to understand why they would summon her despite the fast-approaching exam schedule. Louise smiles and pulls Stella in for a hug. Could it be that Stella was worried about her? Stella stiffens, unwilling to admit she worried for Louise. However, Louise doesn't let her off easily. Hand in hand, the two walk together, making their way to the student council room where they join their friends. Who would have thought that they would become best friends? I honestly love the plot twist between them. Louise reflects on her current life. What used to be just a novel has now become her reality. Before she knew it, she found herself all sentimental for finally being able to live a good life. Later that day, Louise meets Simon at the library. Guessing that he probably didn't eat yet, she offers sandwiches to share with him. This gesture leaves Simon touched, but nevertheless, he takes her up on her offer. Soon, Simon would be off to pursue his studies abroad. She may not show it much, but she wishes Simon the best of luck, letting him know that she's rooting for him every step of the way. As days go by, Louise occupies herself with writing her exam reports. But despite being immersed in her tasks, she later becomes aware of the time. Their grades would be posted by now. She hastily makes her way to the bulletin board, where she finds Ian and Simon, the latter looking dejected. Dreadful, she asks about the results, but Simon beckons her to look for herself. Ooh, this is thrilling! In the past, there were always the constant threats of Ian and Simon being pitted against each other, with Simon being the replacement for Ian, the Crown Prince. As a result, the two made a pact. Ian must always do well in everything. That way, Simon would be safe and protected despite being seen as average. Nobody would think to replace an accomplished prince with an average boy. But despite the peace their pact brought, Ian would often push himself too far, hiding away his exhaustion with a smile. Everything about their situation was twisted, and Simon knew that all too well. I knew they both did that in goodwill, but my heart breaks for them. But now, he's glad to have had Ian's blessing to finally move on from the past, abandoning their pact and reaching their full potential without worrying about the other. Even now, in the present, Ian knows that Simon is just as capable as him. But despite Louise and Ian's encouragement, Simon still feels a tinge of sadness at not being able to reach his goal. Confused, Louise asks what he could possibly mean when his name was already on top of the list. It turns out, Simon's goal was to surpass Ian, but his name was written right next to Ian's, indicating that they both tied for first place. Both Ian and Simon engage in playful banter, throwing snow at each other like little kids. A sight that leaves Louise nostalgic of their childhood. Later that day, Ian leads Louise into a spare room. Even though she was the one who told them to keep warm, she's the one who got hit by minor frostbite while playing outside. Ian brings out a basin of warm water, beckoning Louise to soak her feet in and warm up. As he washes her feet and warms her hands, he dangles a proposal in their conversation, making it known that he's willing to give his all to ask her to be with him forever. He asks her to think about it until her graduation. But to his surprise, Louise tells him there's no need to wait that long to hear her answer. After all, she's willing to endure everything as long as she's with him. Hearing her words, Ian pauses, unable to breathe and blushing profusely. Louise then swoops down, closing the distance between them with a kiss. These two are giving me a terrible case of butterflies. Clare's graduation is fast approaching, and Louise can't help but feel sad to see her dear friend leave. Louise pulls Clare in for a hug, her tears staining Clare's uniform. In an attempt to distract Louise from her crying episode, she relays that a decision has been made concerning Professor Rosson and Hill. Louise immediately perks up, waiting for Clare to continue. For Professor Rosson, she's officially being kicked out of the academy so as not to taint any more students. As she should! She's worse than the original villainess in the novel! But despite this, Clare warns Louise not to let her guard down. Rosson may have been kicked out, but her title as a countess still stands. Clare's words send a chill down Louise's spine, making her shiver just by imagining what Rosson could be plotting. As for Professor Hill, unfortunately, he's suspended from teaching for the next 5 years. On a good note, though, he's permitted to continue his research at the academy, which means they'll still see him around. A vibrant expression makes its way to Louise's face. With Clare's encouragement, she bolts down to the conservatory to meet Professor Hill. Louise finds Professor Hill giddy and excited to see him. She asks to help around while they talk, but unfortunately, there isn't much to do anymore since someone had already come along earlier to help him with his tasks. Curious, Louise asks who it could be. When he doesn't answer her, she starts guessing names, much to his panic. She soon notices his expression, flustered and red all over. It turns out, earlier that morning, it was Stella Lapis who had come to greet Professor Hill after hearing what's become of him. Being around Stella always renders him with no control over his emotions. He finds himself fumbling basic tasks when she's around, making their interactions awkward. He soon excuses himself to go back to his lab, but he can't leave Stella alone to put out the fire in the fireplace. It's not that he doesn't trust her, rather, he'd just grow very worried considering Stella's previous accident with fire where she froze completely. In the end, he offers to stay with her until she's ready to go, leaving Stella mouth agape and beet red at his words. I'm sensing a budding romance between these two. I can already see the vision. Stella slowly awakes, and she panics when she realizes she fell deeply asleep in the conservatory. She gets up to process her surroundings, only to realize she fell asleep right on Professor Hill's chest. Oh my God, Stella! Panicking, she immediately gets off him, internally reprimanding herself for doing such a thing. Her cheeks flush the deepest red at her predicament. Out of the blue, she notices that he fell asleep with his glasses on, and she takes it upon herself to remove them for comfort's sake. Seeing him without his glasses, she's stunned at his beauty, remarking that he looks just like a prince. But suddenly, Professor Hill stirs in his sleep, muttering Stella's name, making Stella even more flustered. In the end, she decides to stay with him, reading a book as he sleeps. When he awakes, he's shocked to still see Stella around. Stella is about to go back to her dorm, but first, she wishes for him to explain a complicated excerpt from the biology book she was reading. Professor Hill commends her for understanding such a complex book. In fact, she actually got the gist of it. It's just that the particular excerpt she questioned was written in a confusing way. His enthusiasm amuses her, and she takes the time to point out her admiration for his love of teaching. Hearing this, Professor Hill pauses. There's a line he can't cross. He's a professor and she's a student. Everything about this interaction is frowned upon by many. Once more, he praises Stella for the excellent student she is, but other than that, she need not concern herself with him. After all, he isn't even her professor anymore, so she has no reason to still interact with him. I mean, I get the ethics behind it, but no, my ship! Something inside her broke upon hearing his words. She can't just disregard her concern for him. On the verge of tears, she wishes him a good night and bolts out the door. Louise and Stella meet up early the next morning to prepare for the graduation ceremony. Louise remarks that the student council room will be lonely, and without missing a beat, Stella quickly chimes in that she'll be apart from the president, Ian. Caught red-handed, Louise blushes uncontrollably. She hangs her head low, thinking that people wouldn't catch on. Stella cheers her up, backing up her decision of wanting to keep their relationship private. After all, being romantically involved with the crown prince has its fair share of troubles lurking around. Louise changes the subject, and the topic of Professor Hill is brought up. but she soon notices Stella's pained expression at the mention of his name. Stella catches Louise up on things, about what happened in the conservatory, her feelings, and how he shut her down. She's an adult, but Professor Hill drawing a line just makes her feel like a child. Hearing all this, Louise advises her to believe in herself. After all, the ultimate goal is not to have any regrets. After their heart-to-heart talk, the two make their way to the dining hall, but they soon encounter Professor Hill on their way there. Upon learning that he needs some help with graduation preparations, Louise offers to help. However, she immediately draws back, pretending she's needed elsewhere. Being left alone, Stella and Professor Hill are left in an awkward situation. In the conservatory, Stella corners Professor Hill into discussing their unresolved feelings. She manages to interrogate him straight up if he harbored any feelings for her. Panicking, Professor Hill tries to deflect, but it's to no avail. However, he doesn't want to indulge his feelings, so he asks Stella to understand. When she nods in agreement, he eases up. That is until Stella admits to liking him too. This causes him to burrow his face in between his hands, unable to process what she just said. His face flushes a deep red, and it doesn't help that Stella is smiling right at him. When Stella admits she'd wait for him to face his feelings, he realizes that he just can't win with her. Aw, their dynamic is honestly so cute! With the graduation ceremony commencing, the remaining student council officers, Dean and Louise, are forced to take in all the responsibilities. Their schedule for the day became so hectic that they weren't even able to bid goodbye to the graduating students. As Dean and Louise lay in defeat, familiar voices call out. Simon and Clare are here to see them. After all, they didn't want to leave without saying goodbye. Louise wishes Simon luck in his ventures moving forward, and she expresses the same to Clare. An array of promises are made between the friends, and it seems like parting is becoming too real. Soon enough, Ian joins in, and as if on cue, the rest of the group leave them alone together. Ian may have graduated already, but for the last time, he walks Louise back to her room, their hands intertwined. The two discuss their plans moving forward, and Ian reminds her that she accepted his proposal, thus making her the future empress. The entire time they're together, Louise hangs her head low, as if sad about their impending parting. She croaks out all her gratitude for Ian, and when it is finally time for him to go, she finds herself hysterical with tears. No, my sweet baby! Seeing her in tears leaves an ache in Ian's heart, and he swoops down to meet her lips. As Ian holds her closer, she cries her heart out, unwilling to let him go. She'd miss him terribly. The winter break passes by in no time, and soon Louise finds herself adjusting to her friend's absence. She receives a letter from Simon informing her to prepare for an exchange student who'll take his place in the academy. Dealing with all this, she decides to pen a letter to Ian and Clare. As the new semester opens, Louise becomes the student council president, succeeding Ian's position. Her first order of business? Recruit the new exchange student, Fenin Garcia, into joining the student council. After all, it's only natural considering he attained the highest rank among all freshmen. But communicating with an exchange student proves to have its obstacles, especially when it comes to their language. Although Fenin is doing well speaking their language, he still needs work refining it. As months go by, Fenin got the reins of becoming a student at the academy really quick. His speech has improved greatly, and he's able to remain top of the class while being in the student council. An impressive feat, no doubt. Finally, the night of the grand banquet has arrived. As the student council plans the banquet, Dean can't help giving Louise a weird look as she gushes about Fenin's enthusiasm. On the night of the banquet, Dean makes it a point to warn Louise about Fenin, much to Louise's confusion. For Dean, someone as dense as Louise should be given a heads up, especially seeing how she can't take a hint. LOL, I just know that Dean is done with Louise already. Dean excuses himself, leaving Louise and Stella to help themselves to the dance. While Fenin asks Louise for a dance, Stella giggles, realizing what Dean meant. This exchange student is completely in love with Louise. New guy, you're cute, but we have an Ian fan club here. At the palace, Ian and Clare smile as they read through Louise's letter. But one thing bothers Ian. It's how Louise Sweeney talks so highly about the exchange student, Fenin Garcia. Immediately, he asks Clare for details about the guy, to which she happily obliges. She gives him a complete rundown. Intelligent, great personality, popular, and always hanging around Louise. Her last sentence leaves Ian speechless, but she soon hands him something that adds fuel to the fire. It's a newspaper published after the banquet, and right on the front page is a photograph of Louise and Fenin dancing together. Ian loses his cool, and he orders Clare to prepare the carriage. He has to go to the academy quickly. But his request is shut down as Clare reminds him of his prior engagements, especially with foreign kingdoms. Left with no choice, Ian crumbles, accepting his fate. He's so cute when he's jealous. Back at the academy, Dean and Louise get into an argument as they start missing their significant others. Louise blames Dean, making her long for Ian terribly. She's about to give Dean a beating when Fenin walks in, catching them in an awkward position. Louise pulling Dean close. Before Fenin could assume, Dean is quick to clear the air. Later on, Fenin happily offers each of them a jar of jelly beans, recounting that he received them from the girls earlier that day. Like a true bro, Dean tells him that in their academy, that's a way of confessing. Hearing this, Fenin is completely in shock. As Dean leaves the room, Fenin sulks, admitting he shouldn't have been so naive. After all, this doesn't seem right since there's someone out there that he likes. Hearing this, Louise becomes invested in the drama, but he cuts their conversation short, asking to meet Louise in the garden at sunset. That evening, Louise meets Fenin in the garden, totally expecting him to share more about the girl he likes. Little does she know that the person Fenin likes just happens to be her, Louise Sweeney. Before Louise could utter a response, a familiar voice chimes in. Ian has come to the academy. Yikes, Louise, you're in the hot seat. Fenin pours his heart out into confessing to Louise, expressing how he'd love to take her to his country. However, before Louise can even respond, someone else cuts Fenin off. It's Ian. Ian cuts to the chase. Louise Sweeney is his and his alone. Hearing this, Fenin realizes the gravity of their situation. Pursuing Louise, the crown prince's lover and the country's future queen, could mean conflict between their countries. Diplomacy in mind, Fenin acknowledges the relationship both Ian and Louise share, promising not to pursue Louise any longer. But that doesn't mean he'll avoid her either. In fact, until their graduation comes, Fenin still fully plans to stick by her side, as a friend and colleague. As Fenin leaves, Ian can't help but be annoyed at his last statement. So much for trying to avoid conflict between countries. Out of the corner of his eye, he notices Louise gazing at him with concern. Worried, she asks if something had happened for him to come to the academy so suddenly. But little does she know that he only came because of her. Pulling her into a hug, he expresses how much he missed her. As he rambles on, she feels tears forming in her eyes. She's missed him terribly too. Ian then closes the gap between them, pulling her in for a kiss, letting their worries dissipate as they hold each other close. However, as much as Ian wants to stay, he tells Louise that he needs to go. It turns out, he snuck out of the palace, causing others to look for him in the dead of night. Ian's staff spots him, prying him away, much to Louise's amusement. Over the next few months, life goes on for Louise at the academy. In the company of her friends, she's able to make the most of her last year, even graduating at the top of her class, just like Ian. Finally, as she graduates, she looks forward to only one thing: being with Ian. With their studies finished, Ian and Louise find themselves working together against their next battle, getting approval from Louise's father. Louise's father is left shocked, a wave of emotions crashing down on him as Ian and Louise inform him of their intentions on becoming a royal couple. But as a father, he can't easily let go of his dear daughter. For him to fully approve of all this, he asks Ian only one thing. He needs to know for sure that Louise's future will be safe and secure. That's a piece of cake for our walking green flag boy, Ian! A few days later, the Imperial Palace hosts a banquet to celebrate the new year. Both Ian and Louise attend, but it seems something is making Louise uncomfortable. It turns out everyone is whispering about the Crown Prince's fiancé, calling her all sorts of things. Unbeknownst to them, the fiancé in question, Louise Sweeney, is right next to them. However, all the whispers dissipate when the king approaches Louise and everyone realizes that she's the Crown Prince's fiancé. As if the universe wanted to make everyone eat their words, the king approaches Louise, inviting her to a dance. Seeing this, everyone gasps, realizing that she's the Crown Prince's fiancé. The king expresses his gratitude to Louise. If it weren't for her, Ian would have been lonely the rest of his life. So the least the imperial family can do is make Louise feel welcome and at ease. Aw, I love how she's welcomed so warmly. Just then, the Dowager Queen swoops in, taking Louise from the king and continuing the dance. Likewise, she expresses her heartfelt sentiments about Louise, also sharing bits about Ian's mother. As they continue to dance, she places a gentle kiss on Louise's forehead, telling her something that makes her flustered. It's about how deeply in love Ian is for her. The Queen Dowager is about to continue when suddenly Ian arrives, cheeks flushed red, breathless, trying to stop his grandmother from saying anything more. Ian leads Louise away from the crowd, both finding reprieve and solace on the ballroom balcony. Outside, he reminds Louise that she is his alone, expressing his jealousy about the kiss his grandmother placed on her. Protective boyfriend alert! Louise laughs it off. The night is too beautiful for them to dwell on such a matter. Come to think of it, this is the first time they're celebrating the new year together. In all their years together, as friends and lovers, it makes Louise wonder what else they haven't done. Hearing this, Ian lowers himself to meet her gaze. With a mischievous smile, he tells her that there are, in fact, many things they haven't done together. But before Louise could ponder more about it, she soon feels his lips crashing against her own. OMG, he kisses like a man starved! Being with Ian, it makes Louise think of the original book, Fake Lovers from the Academy. Everything is completely different from the book's plot now, but she's not complaining. After all, everything worked out well in the end. Not just for her, but for everyone. Later that night, Ian and Louise retreat to their shared quarters, ultimately deciding to hold their wedding during the spring season. Just like that, the preparations for their wedding soon begin. With everything going so smoothly, Louise can only admit that she owes it all to the people who assisted her every step of the way. Stella, who managed the greenhouse for her, Clare, who helped her out in all the plannings and bookings despite her recent marriage to Dean, Sir Hasher, who often kept her company, and most of all, Simon. On the day of the wedding, Simon arrives seeking out Louise before the ceremony. Not only is he doing her hair, but little does he know he's giving Louise more courage to see everything through. Finally, under the beautiful spring day, Louise and Ian walk down the aisle, a combination of laughter and tears from their loved ones serenading them. With everyone as a witness, the two exchange their vows, ultimately sealing their fate as husband and wife, future king and queen of the kingdom. That marks the end of I'm the Male Lead's Girlfriend, everyone. The story tells a tale of Louise Sweeney, who never expected Ian Odomiel to love her, going against the original book's plot. Thank you all for your continued support, and stay tuned for more videos like this in the future.